I'd say we're 10 to 20x faster than the rest of the industry on our chassis development, because we can go to a Willow Springs, test the car, come back, realize that we want to change something on the suspension system, take a day, 2 days to re-engineer, print within a day, get that part back on the car. The lead time of creating a new casting mold, going to a vendor that's working for you, doing all their quality and validation, ultimately getting a new part, that's usually 6+ months for the industry.
So you've got how many track records at this point here in America?
We've got 2 major ones in the U.S. We got Laguna Seca, we got Circuit of the Americas. We actually had to go set those twice because we set them the first time.
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
Competition comes chomping at the door, so we had to come back and reclaim those records. It was good. Yeah, it was good. It was a lot of energy in the air. Yeah,
I can only imagine.
Yeah. People were fired up, and it was interesting. I mean, for us, we work in aerospace a lot, so I was kind of there on business to talk with the people in the new administration that are running things like technology, acquisition, national security policy, and briefing them on Divergent and how we can help them.
That's more the Divergent side of the business.
Yeah, that's 100% Divergent side of the house, but we're a pretty integrated company. I mean, everyone has one share class. So if you're a Zinger employee, you own the same company shares as if you're a Divergent employee. That stitches both companies very closely together. And, the car uses the technology. It advances the technology. We generate IP out of Zinger that flows into Divergent and vice versa. So it is a one company feel, but if you're on the Zinger team, the core team, it's under the Zinger brand, and you're a HYPERCAR company. You're not doing military systems. Divergent does some military systems as well, and we like to keep those two a little bit separate for a good reason.
Makes sense.
If I'm not mistaken, Divergent was first, and even some of the prototypes was built through Divergent.
Yeah.
And then at what point did you guys
branch
off?
For us, we started Divergent as like a big idea company, right? We were looking at pain points, economic, manufacturing, design in auto and in aerospace, and saying this is fundamentally broken. And instead of re-optimizing or adding value to this traditional process, we're going to take a clean sheet of paper and say, we've got modern compute. What if we change the way that we design and engineer using that compute power, generative design, AI? How do we change and move away from stamping and casting and machining to a product agnostic manufacturing method? Same with robotic assembly, but match the cost productivity that auto expects. To do that, you need to, one, create software and hardware, right? Design software, manufacturing hardware, but then you need to apply it to something. Otherwise, you're not going to actually learn if the software or the hardware is working, right? So we started essentially a chassis program, R&D program within Divergent, and we would engineer the chassis. We'd print our parts. It was a rolling car. It had a power plant in it, and we would drive and we'd get feedback, and we'd refine our software tools and our manufacturing methods. And about 3 years into that business, Divergent's tools were getting advanced. The chassis program was running. And I looked at it and said, this can be a standalone business. One, out of passion, but two, because it made a lot of sense. We had spent millions of dollars developing a platform already. We'd hired quite a few individuals that were knowledgeable in auto, and there's a massive gap in the U.S. for a ground-up hypercar, supercar business. So about 3-4 years into Divergent, the Czinger Vehicles brand was born, but it was very much so already a project per se inside the company.
Yeah.
It wasn't a full-blown startup. You guys had already just been developing the technology.
Exactly.
Are
we live now?
We are fully deep into this.
Okay. Hell yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I was like,
we do very quarterback sneak style.
Okay.
Like, you don't even know.
Yeah.
I'm already up.
I couldn't tell if I was like having a casual conversation or a filled conversation right there, but that's the perfect style.
Yeah. That's the whole point behind all of it.
Got it.
It's not very much like I've seen a lot of stuff that you've done before this stuff like that. It's a little less interview style dynamic, more so just conversational.
Perfect.
Imagine you're sitting down.
Yeah.
You're at Kazunori with the boys. You got some sashimis coming up, and we're just sitting there chomping it up.
I like it.
That's all that it is.
Yeah.
Bro. That's all that it is.
I love it.
Yes.
Well, this is the perfect product to showcase the technology.
Absolutely. I mean, for us, we're interested in changing things like performance and cost and productivity. And a lot of times to do that effectively, you need to spend a lot of dollars on R&D. And to spend a lot of dollars on R&D, you then need a product that actually can satisfy a high BOM cost as well. So people ask, why the HYPERCAR and, the rest of it. Well, part of it is you actually need to be able to have that R&D budget to create advanced new technology, and then that technology trickles down into the mass market as well. And in that sense, the Zinger car, there could not have been a harsher proving ground for that design software and that manufacturing method, and that's exactly what we are solving for.
Yeah.
Right.
So you've got how many track records at this point here in America?
We've got 2 major ones in the U.S. We got Laguna Seca, we got Circuit of the Americas. We actually had to go set those twice because we set them the first time.
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
Competition comes chomping at the door, so we had to come back and reclaim those records. And then we have one international record, which is the Goodwood Hillclimb over in the UK. And that day was a tremendous day because we like competition. I think most people do.
Yeah.
In our industry, and you're running at the same exact time on the same exact course with all the great brands out there, right? You're doing this hill climb, and McLaren's there, Ferrari's there, Bugatti's there, Koenigsegg's there, Pagani's there, and they're running back to back to back. And there's the Zinger, and we end the day with a record time for that day, but also a historic time, right? We got the overall fastest of all time hill climb at Goodwood. So seeing that level of competition, and it just pushes people forward, right? Everyone leaves a little bit more hungry to see what they can do the next year or the next month or the next
people
week.
Off, I imagine, too, in the midst of that.
Yeah. You know,
you're new to the scene.
I think a little bit of anger is a good thing, right?
100%.
I mean, we know Koenigsegg well. I've got a lot of respect for them. They've got a similar philosophy to a certain degree in terms of vertical integration, both in their design and their manufacturing. But hell yeah, we want to compete. And if it's our car versus their car on the track, you know what we're going to bet on. And at the end of the day, that's respect from them as well, right? So of course it's competition, but it's also respect.
On those record times that you had to set twice, what modification, what changes were done to be able to do that? If any.
Quite a number, honestly. So the first time we went to Laguna Seca, we were running what we call VP1, which was our first real development car. And to put that into perspective, we had the chassis program inside of Divergent, and we were maybe back then 10, 12 people overall on that team. So tiny team, right? We've been developing that chassis, and that's the auto side. And then I'd looked at it and said, we can form a real business here. And we were still resource shy, right? So it wasn't like, okay, we're going to go hire 300 people. It was more, we've got to make an incremental step to show the industry and show ourselves and show our investors that this is for real. And we took that chassis program with those 12 people. An individual named Ewan Baldry, who's now our chief engineer, he really stepped up big. And within 12 months, we'd taken that chassis to the VP1 vehicle level. So it was about 25 engineering projects that we ran in parallel to take something that really was not an engineered car into the car we brought to Laguna for the first time, broke that track record, claimed it was the production car record, right? It was a production intent car. Sure, we claimed that a bit early, but that was part of our strategy, right? And that unlocked a lot of interest, but it also showed our investors, okay, this is for real. The 21C just beat the McLaren track time at this track after 1 year of engineering using a new technology base. But
Completely new technology base.
Yeah, completely new.
Not just a little components here, completely new technology base.
Yeah, so, I mean, ground up, designed a chassis, designed vehicle dynamics, designed a powertrain layout that was all new. And on the chassis side, that's where we go the deepest in terms of our tech stack, right? So we're designing suspension, rear frame, front frame, crash structures using generative AI. So fundamentally moving away from purely parametric CAD and using digital tools with humans fully in the loop to going towards using algorithms to essentially create that geometry, create that CAD. It's a completely different engineering process, but you end up being able to design something that no human alone could design. And therefore, what does that all boil down to? is essentially being a lighter weight structure, a better package structure, while meeting all those requirements. And in certain areas, being able to achieve a requirement that others can't, being able to achieve a ductility or a stiffness or a strength per unit mass that no one else can with their design and manufacturing methods.
Yeah, it's crazy because you look at the parts and they follow such like a biointelligent sort of shape, which seems to make sense. You're talking about like millions of years of external forces shaping our technology, our body, and then you start doing that through AI, and it can do that in a much quicker time frame. And spit something out, and it's
spot on. We talk about evolution a lot, right? Because plants, animals, we're competing for energy and material, and we're adapting to our local environment over millions of years. And the name Divergent actually comes from divergent evolution. So you're looking at Darwin and the finches, these birds that basically develop niche characteristics for the local environment they were in as they evolved, right? And that was the kind of fundamentals of evolution, and something probably every kid has studied in school at a certain point. But that's what this software is mirroring. But it's doing so in a completely compressed timeline. So you're doing hundreds of thousands of simulations against your load cases, your requirements, and you're adding and subtracting material until you reach a Pareto frontier, meaning you've found a local maxima where you cannot take a gram of material out of that structure without breaking one of your requirements. Right. And that is efficiency, right? And usually once you have that design, you need to be able to materialize that design. And our designs are so complex that you would never be able to cast them or machine them or stamp them. And that's how we found additive as our answer was we wanted to make efficient geometry. The only way to make efficient geometry is if we could manufacture that structure layer by layer by layer.
And that's got to be cheaper development too, because you're not recreating a new cast. Even if you could cast it, you're not recreating a new cast every iteration.
No, iteration, adaptability, that's our key advantage, right? And certainly we didn't get everything right from the start with the Zinger car. It was how quickly we could take lessons learned, adapt our design, get it back onto a printed structure and back on the car, back on the track or road for testing. I'd say we're 10 to 20x faster than the rest of the industry on our chassis development, because we can go to a Willow Springs, test the car, come back, realize that we want to change something on the suspension system, take a day, 2 days to re-engineer, print within a day, get that part back on the car. The lead time of creating a new casting mold, going to a vendor that's working for you, doing all their quality and validation, ultimately getting a new part, that's usually 6+ months for the industry. So you're compressing your iteration, and you're also using production intent tools from the start. We don't have prototype tools here. Our first part comes off tool, off process. It's the same printer, same material, same process for the production car.
I mean, we have a perfect example of it right here.
I could deadlift the back of this chassis.
I believe it.
Which kind of blew me away. I lifted a couple inches off the ground. I was like, this thing is, that's how light this is. And it's seemingly a lot of mass. But
it's, I think this is the modern architecture for hypercars, full stop. So you're going to see a composite safety cell, and you're going to see fully additively manufactured suspension, rear frame, and front frame. We work with a lot of other automakers as well. This is the way the industry's going, and for good reason. I mean, the mass efficiency, the packaging efficiency, the iteration, the variant control, right? Everyone likes the special edition vehicles, right? But there's been a little bit of bullshit in that area as well, where you're changing minor things, but you're charging a really high price point for those minor changes.
A ton of bullshit.
Now imagine you can make fundamental changes to your vehicle architecture and make a small series run that has a different chassis system.
A lot of rebodied Aventadors that are going for $3 million. More than that. It's like $7 million.
A lot more than that.
Yeah, the body panels is definitely not true innovation, right? There's styling there. There's something cool there. There's exclusivity there. But
it's a Jacob and Co. billionaire.
Yeah, that's not a engineered structure that's performing differently for the driver, right?
And then correct me if I'm wrong, but with this type of design, you can get so detailed specification-wise that like if you wanted to change or enhance one specific component of the car, you can dial it down completely where that one-off is dialed up in this specific metric versus this has a completely different metric. You can make this thing tailored down to a literal T.
Absolutely.
If I'm not mistaken, this is like one of the most customizable vehicles that exists.
Yeah, I mean, mass customization was, one of the principles about Divergent and Zinger. And when we think of the industry at large, it is that same kind of evolution-based thinking where every car should be designed for its niche or for its end customer and their desire as well. So as we get more and more advanced on our digital certification, right, as we move from doing all this destructive crash testing over the next 10 years, hopefully doing a lot more of that purely in simulation, you're going to be able to make fully one-off vehicles that are production qualified with a digital cert. And Divergent is at the forefront, Zinger is at the forefront of leading that, but you have such control, right? You look at these parts, there's sections inside that are hollow, there's sections that have matrices in them, there's sections that actually do fluid flow, right? So inside of this brake caliper, you're actually taking your brake fluid into the primary structure. That primary structure is connected to your knuckle. Now you're sharing your stiffness profile. You're actually doing your cooling of that braking fluid in that dispersed inner network of the part.
Simultaneously.
So are you putting like a tube in there, or is it just, you just leave the whole, okay, so it's all...
No, so it's literally printed in because you've got layer by layer control. So on the inside of that, you've got essentially your tubes printed in, but there's not a separate tube that's inserted in there as part of the structure, right? So
it's
you
all
get
one structure, correct?
Yeah,
the
you get away.
Node, if I'm not mistaken.
The brake node. The brake node. We love it. This is going to be an option on the 21C. It's going through full testing right now. You can imagine braking is one of the most critical and high quality kind of concern areas of the vehicle. So we've printed dozens of these at this point.
Yeah.
We've gone through everything from burst testing to low temp to high temp to what amount of deflection are we getting after millions of cycles on the braking there. And when this comes into the market, we fully expect it'll be by far the highest performance braking system out there.
So was this on the record breaking car or no?
No.
Wow.
No. Yeah.
So you've got a lot of space to go still.
You guys still the table still. we got everything. I love it.
And anyone that when you talk to engineers on a hypercar or supercar platform, they'll tell you like the car usually doesn't become fast until like the last 10-20% of that vehicle development, because that's when all your software, your drive control, your traction modes, your power delivery, everything is being sorted in that last 10-20% of the program. So we broke these records without the car being quote unquote sorted to that level.
Yeah.
So there's a lot left on power delivery, on traction, on how we distribute that power, on some fine tuning of our aero setup and our suspension setup. So we fully expect to improve dramatically on those track times.
They're going to smash the shit out of those track times. is what he's trying to say respectfully. And that's at your guys' current level of where you guys are at. So I imagine you guys are still actively doing more R&D to continue, because this can be refined and refined and refined and refined until it's...
I mean, part of the beauty is that these two companies are connected, and we've raised about $800 million to date, which is a healthy amount of capital to be able to really like push the envelope and make some mistakes as well, but continue to innovate. So we're working on variants of the 21C that'll be quite dramatically different. We're working on our next hypercar already. We're looking at how can we take this principle of what we call functional integration, right? Taking what is a vehicle system and tying it into the chassis to the next level, right? How do we do it for EV motors, battery packs, the actual engine block and pistons? The transmission is already evolved to a printed case with all the cooling integrated into it. How can we take all of that another step further?
So right now you're making 80 21Cs, right? So you got 80 kind of multi-million-dollar hypercars going to the market. What's the future outlook of the Zinger Motors brand?
Yeah, we're ambitious people and we think pretty widely, right? Our constraints, I think, are further out than most people in their own minds. We went as far as calling it Zinger Vehicles instead of Zinger Cars or Zinger Automotive, because vehicles encompasses all things in the vehicle space. And we're a business that fundamentally could make something that flies or goes on the water one day as well. And we want to keep optionality there. Yeah, or both, right? That's
Don't
what it's
tease me,
about.
man. Don't tease me.
The beauty of our manufacturing system is it's not product specific. So when we invest in print and robotic assembly, we could make a car, we could make a hull for a boat, we could make an airframe for an airplane. But we've got a passion for performance auto, and we want to dominate that space over time. And we're kind of realistic about what it takes to do that as well. So we're going to sit in this supercar and this hypercar space for a while, fully establish ourselves as that U.S. brand, and then expand and take opportunity from there. But I'd say the next 5 years, at least for us, are going to be very hypercar focused.
Yeah. You think we'll ever see a supercar underneath the hypercar, something more attainable for us regular folks?
Yeah, I've got to be careful about exactly what I share, but over
Sure.
time, we're going to come into that supercar class as well.
So that's what I'm really excited about.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but eventually, like you said in the beginning, all of this is a part of revolutionizing the industry first one. But to do that, like you said, the product has to be able to back the R&D initially. Eventually, this technology will be scalable down into something that's a lot more cost effective.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
at the same time, you're building crazy vehicles. But at the same time, you're running a business. So those two have to coexist and make sense at the same time.
Yeah.
So it has to start here
Yeah,
with eventual development down the line.
absolutely.
At a mass scale.
And we can kind of have our cake and eat it too, in a certain sense, because we've got both these businesses, which are integrated as one, but we got the Zinger brand, we got Divergent. And the Zinger brand, in my opinion, needs to be at the leading edge, right? It needs to be that high R&D budget. It needs to be able to do things like brake node, and what's brake node 3 years from now, right? It's a different system that's also breaking, the benchmark on performance and design. But Divergent is fundamentally creating a platform and democratizing that platform. So we don't want to hold that design software captive for ourselves. We want other teams to be able to use that design software as well. So we want to create a SaaS application out of that one day. And then on the manufacturing platform, that should be factory as a service, just like we can all tap into the cloud for storage and compute. 10 years from now, you should be able to tap into a Divergent manufacturing facility and get your chassis manufactured, your airframe manufactured, or if you're a small design team, your prototype manufactured so you can go drive and prove it out. That to us is the big mission, right? We want to bring capability and capacity on the manufacturing side back to the U.S. and to U.S. allied countries, and we want to democratize the access to it. And that means very practically, by the end of the decade, we'd like to have 15 plus Divergent facilities running in the US that are at scale printing and assembling for all the automakers, all the aerospace and defense companies, and all the small teams that are just starting to form businesses and getting into that competitive landscape.
Democratizing while still under the Divergent roof.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So fundamentally, when you're thinking about starting a business, right, entrepreneurial mindset, you can think about creating something and licensing it relatively quickly. And if you do that, you need less investment, right? You're more CapEx light, and you probably see a return more quickly, but you kind of hamstring how big of a business you can ultimately create. We took the opposite approach, which was we're going to need a lot of capital. We're going to do a lot of hardware. It's going to be a pretty long cycle to get to the point where we are commercially viable, right? We've been doing this almost a decade, but in the end, we're going to own and operate it. So those 15 plus facilities, they're Divergent owned and operated, but they're flowing the end part. So what we sell is the suspension arm, the frame, the airframe, and we keep all our IP whole. We run that system as a black box, but our output is something that our customers want, and it's enabling them to make a better product.
So the end goal, not saying I'm correct in this, would be to have this ability in these components at scale through the Divergent and Czinger brands, so that even multiple brands using your guys' technology, but without you guys, none of it can be done.
Exactly.
Understood.
And that's what we see today is we've got some great OEM partners already in the auto space. McLaren, Bugatti, those are two public ones. They're upcoming hypercars, suspension designed here in
So
LA.
you're like licensing the tech
we are designing it for them, we're manufacturing it, and we're shipping it to them, and they're integrating it into their vehicle, right? And that tells you something when a European brand looks to a technology startup in California to help with their engineering and manufacturing, right?
100%.
Made
Yeah,
in the USA, baby.
Yeah.
especially these companies that have had billions in R&D and decades of experience coming to someone that's relatively very new.
Yeah.
So where does the auto kind of where does your automotive passion come from? What makes you so passionate about building a hypercar?
We can sense it.
Yeah,
It's oozing
I mean,
out of you.
I've got a lot of passion for this company, and there's a lot of reasons for it, and it's deeper than just auto for me as well.
At one point, you were a kid.
I was obsessed
You
with
might
cars.
have had a poster on your wall.
Yeah,
That's what we wanna
I
know.
was obsessed with cars for a long time. Risk tolerance wise, I was always the kid that was kind of pushing extreme sports as well, skiing, biking, downhill biking, you name it. As soon as I was close to being able to drive a car, I was obsessed with that idea. And my father, he actually had a Mitsubishi Evo 8. So kind of,
Fun
Japanese
vehicle.
style rally car. By the time I was 14, I was taking my pocket money and I was investing in that car even though I didn't have my license yet. So by the time I was 15 and a half, I had a fully built Evo 8 that I started ripping around LA. And I went to high school here and I lived in Brentwood, but I commuted all the way across 405, Mulholland Canyon into Coldwater Canyon into where my high school was there. And every morning you're waking up, you're hitting sunset, and you're seeing your like 5 other buddies that are into cars, and they're spending all their money on, whatever they can accomplish at that point, right? Is it coilovers? Is it turbo kit? You're not talking about supercars. You're talking about cars that are, $30,000 to $60,000, but you're putting in a few $100s a month into making it something better. That ignited it for me, right? And unfortunately, that Evo 8 met an early demise, but that certainly it ignited a fire for also what it felt like to drive, right? And at the end of the day, I love technology. I studied electrical engineering in college, and that's as theoretical as it gets. You're kind of removed from hardware, but there's a beauty to artistically designing, having the highest performance generative AI-based engineering software. But at the end of the day, you want to make something, at least I do, that's physical. And then there's nothing better than sitting in something that you have engineered and experiencing what it feels like to actually drive it at speed. So this company, I can't think of a greater honor, privilege, experience than actually being able to, from the ground up, engineer a vehicle and then drive it on the road. And I've had a lot of cars since that Evo 8, or at least a good number. And at the end of the day, like, the driving experience is an experience that unites the car community, right? The technology is interesting. We love talking about it. But it's the driving experience, I think, that's like the animalistic drive to why
100%.
we love it, right?
That's the whole reason why we even started this. That is the driving force of everything that we do.
Yeah.
Is the experience.
What do you drive to work today? Because it's not a 21C.
Yeah, I'm driving a little bit of a boring car right now, which is a Cayenne, but it's upgraded for some off-roading. So I've got some good rims on it. I've got some OZ Rally rims on it, some big off-road tires on it. And honestly, I got it as a second car. I was driving a Mercedes GTR in that bright green color,
Yeah,
if you know it. And that's a fun car. I mean, you got the long nose on it, so you kind of feel like you're in a good way, right? Like
Santa
writing
sleigh.
with a pencil, but holding it by the eraser, right? It's like, holy shit, that's a lot of car in front of me. But it's a fast car. It sounds great. I enjoyed it a lot. I started having some issues and I sold it. But the Cayenne, it's the opposite end of the spectrum. You get in there, you get on your work calls, and you're cruising along the 405 while you're doing work. And that's not a driving experience. That's more of a optimization of time. Right. And then I'm lucky where we've gone through full crash and full emissions work on the car. And we can talk about that, but that's fundamentally different, I think, than anyone that's new to the car space, at least, is to take on that challenge. And what that means is you need a lot of prototype cars to get through full crash testing and emissions testing.
Right.
So we've got a fleet of prototypes that I'm lucky enough to get behind the wheel when I've got time to. And there's no better sports car experience, in my opinion, hyper experience than 21C.
I'm not gonna lie to you. There was a couple. You touched on one of the questions that I wanted to ask. I was like, "There's a lot of stuff that we want to get through, but there's a couple questions selfishly I wanted to ask in the dynamic." But the crash testing of like the initial prototypes of these designs, because you're talking about sculpting something that's never been done before, and then testing it in a crash. What was the result of that? What did it look like?
Yeah, so I mean, occupant safety is in the end what you really care about, right? So it's like you've got a crash dummy in that safety cell, and you're basically fully sensored up on that crash dummy, and it's all about its response, right? How fast is its head moving after impact? And what we see, and it sounds basic, but there's obviously a lot of advanced engineering in it, but you get an output plot, and it's basically these motion profiles, and they're graded across a scale, and you kind of see, okay, I'm green into red across that scale on all these different movement profiles. Our first time doing crash testing on this car, we were green and yellow, no red. So
the first time.
Yeah, that was a hell of an achievement. And the reason for that was we had already printed thousands of parts, and we'd done subscale testing of those. So we had done front impact on our crash tower that's on this facility. So we can actually simulate a 20 mile per hour front impact into a crash rail right here on a daily basis. We're able to do the same with our hydraulic test setup. So pushing parts to failure, getting good correlation to our design software tools. We'd done that for some years before we ever got to full vehicle level crash. And then the beauty of it was you look at those yellows, and instead of saying that's good enough, which a lot of car companies, they kind of just call it at a certain point, right? You've spent a lot of money, you've engineered structure for a while, the crash tests cost money as well.
Right.
It's usually hard for them to get new parts to re-crash, and they say, okay, pencils down, we're good enough. For us, we took each one of those yellows to green because we could change a specific part to absorb more energy, to have a different stiffness, have a different elongation, have a different geometry. We could change it very, very quickly. And we also rebuilt essentially the same cars that we were crashing. So instead of having 20 crash cars, we had 2. And we take off the frames, we take off the suspension, we'd essentially repair but improve that car before our next crash test.
So just literally recycling the crash cars.
Yeah.
It's a genius idea.
Yeah, exactly. And then you integrate, right, over time. First, you're essentially testing these on a sled. So you put your chassis on a sled, you slam it into the wall. Then at a certain point, you're firing the airbag, but it's remote fired. So someone's essentially pressing a button. And then finally, you're getting to the point where everything is in the loop and live, and you're detecting that crash. The car is detecting it. It's firing the airbag, and you're seeing your full performance of the whole system.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask you a couple business side of the everything dynamic?
Yeah.
What do you think is the number one hurdle that you guys have to overcome while trying to grow and scale the Czinger Vehicles brand?
Yeah. Knock on wood, I think we've probably been through our highest risk point already, which was technology risk at the beginning of the business, right? What is the performance characteristics that you need? Can these materials be strong enough? Do they have the elongation to do a crash test, to spec? Our assembly process, do we have the adhesives, the essential glues that we bond these parts together with that hold up under low temp, high temp durability? Getting through that tech phase, we probably spent over $300 million with those questions still open, right? So there was just a lot of risk on does the tech work. Then the second piece, and it's really a little bit more Divergent related, is the cost productivity of that system. If we want to address auto, we need to be able to make an N kilogram of structure in a cost-effective way. And from the time we started to now, we've become about 20 times cheaper. That's a big step towards doing volume auto over time. Now, our goal line continues to move out, right? So now I'm thinking, how can we get these 15 plus factories set up by the end of the decade? And that's an ambitious mission where we're going to have to get our execution right on how we raise capital into the business, how we have programs that take up the capacity of that factory infrastructure, how we work with federal and state to get incentives to be in the right areas. and then ultimately just how good are we at running a high throughput through a new manufacturing system, right? What is our overall OEE of a factory in the field? And that goes from tech risk and development to execution excellence, and that's the story of the business, essentially. That's the arc of this story.
Right. It feels good to be over at least the majority of the hard
Yeah.
stuff, but you guys got a long way to keep pushing. And I
Yeah.
can already sense your vision for everything, and you guys are far from done, even tapped into the beginning of what you guys are probably, this end product will look like.
This is the start of something that we think can be fundamentally one of the largest businesses in the world between Divergent and Zinger. And at the same time, you got to be proud of making a car that performs the standard that 21C does. So I tell this team, you know, we push it really hard, right? Everyone feels like they're kind of ending the day with a tie, even though they've done something outstanding. And every now and then it's like, all right, pencils down. Let's take a look in the rearview mirror and see that we've actually achieved quite a bit in the last decade here.
Yeah, you could take a look in your rearview mirror.
Yeah. It's getting me excited.
How did you get to the tandem seating? How did that become a thing?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, and I'll give my dad some credit here as well, because Kevin was adamant about that seating layout. When I was a kid, he was obsessed with SR-71, the Skunk Works team, Kelly Johnson, that led that Lockheed team. And we started looking at jets a lot and surveillance planes, and everyone knows the configuration, right? Pilot, co-pilot. That was the first like spark of the idea of we could replicate that, but in a hypercar. And then it goes into, okay, is that a dumb idea or a good idea when we actually take a closer look? And it became a very smart idea from an aero standpoint. So you shrink your frontal surface area. That's something that every car that's going on the track tries to do, but they're usually limited by the fact that they have side-by-side seating. So you got that single seat, you shrink your windscreen, you get much better aero performance, you get narrow on your cabin, all of a sudden you can use top of fenders and more surface area of the car to improve aero even further, right? And the 21C, I mean, it became a very high downforce car, especially for a road legal car. I mean, we're doing 5,000 plus pounds of downforce on that rear wing at 190 miles per hour. And the seating layout is part of what enabled that. And then the other piece is how you're sitting in the car and what it feels like to be centered. It's hard to go back to side by side after you get the feeling of being centered, right?
Yeah.
Your turns are symmetric. You've got really good placement. Your shoulder room in this car is actually really wide, right? You're not being scrunched by anything else. That's a great just driver dynamic position.
Even for me, you think I'll be pretty nice in there?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah. We've had some big guys in there.
I'm a semi-large human being, Lucas.
Yeah.
I would love to test that out.
We're gonna have to get you in there. Yeah. Helmet on. You know, someone 6'3", 6'4" with a helmet on can still fit and track this car.
We're Gucci.
Yeah.
Gucci
You'll see in our roof, you kind of see that A pillar all the way through the back of the car, so it's kind of a continuous pillar, but it's scalped it out. So the top of the car is really just essentially glass plane, but you know, you kind of take out that area and it actually gives you another 2-3 inches of headroom.
What does the client experience look like for Czinger Vehicles?
You know, for us, these early clients make our business, right? Fundamentally. So we call it the Zinger family. I view them as much more than just customers. They're partners with us. They're part of that family. They're people that I know well, that I'm developing further relationship with. They're people that understand what we do deeply, that want to be a part of a story as well. And it's about the car and it's about the business. And what we try and do is really invite them in, right? And not keep any barrier that's artificial with a big marketing team that's really curating every little material for them. That's cool and all, but after a while, people just want authentic experience and they want to be able to walk into this car factory, Area 21, see what's going on, talk to the people that are working there, talk about the next generation of the car, and then go drive, right? And what we cater to is great driving experiences and that access to us directly, to myself, but our chief engineer, our head of manufacturing, to the point where It does feel like family, and that's something that I hope we can keep, right? And that's one of the things I think about is it's hard to keep that at scale. Right now, we can really, really have that. So you also got to recognize where you are in your timeline. Right now, we're in a timeline where our customers can feel like partners and like family. And we better exploit that as, a privileged time in our history as well.
And incentivize the buyer. If you're the type of buyer that has the budget for this type of vehicle, you look at your options and you go, where exactly am I getting the best spend for my dollar, especially early on? They feel like they're included in everything.
Yeah.
That's a unique buying experience that cannot be offered and is not offered in any sense of the form.
Yeah. And a lot of these guys and girls, they're smart people, right? And they take a hard look at what they want to represent as well. And what we have here is a technology that can shape a whole industry. And they see a car that represents that for the first time, and they know if this business really works out, which is their bet and our bet, they're going to own something that was the first instance of that. And that's just a very cool feeling that not a lot of car brands or cars out there can offer. What was the last time you saw a vehicle that fully represented a new technology suite overall, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's been
Henry Ford,
it's been
the assembly line, right?
It's been a fucking minute.
Going from coach builds and wood vehicles literally to, railroad engineered technology that went into auto to do the stampings for the Henry Ford line, right? Maybe the first time that we saw composite safety cells, maybe that's, Lexus, LFA, right? Like that was a tech moment. Maybe it's
the electric
F1,
car
right?
switch.
Maybe it's the electric cars, but, none of those really had mass impact, right?
And clean slate as well.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah. So to me, this represents 750 patents as a car model, and that's called the 21C. And you get to own that, and you get to be part of the story of building that.
And it's applicable to all all vehicles, like you were saying.
Yeah.
So it's not just impacting the gasoline vehicles or the electric vehicles.
Yeah.
You can probably impact the entire
We're
industry as a whole.
powertrain agnostic. We picked what we felt was the highest performing powertrain layout, which is a strong hybrid, right? You've got the electric motors in the front, you've got the middle electric motor, which is your MGU, and you've got a V8. And therefore, you've got the torque of EV, you've got the power delivery and fill of EV, and you've got the V8, which is putting down close to 1,000 horsepower reliably day in, day out for endurance track events. And you're minimizing the size of your battery packs because once those get big, you get a very heavy vehicle, right? So you get EV without the weight penalty of EV, and you get the V8 engine.
And you get the low center of gravity aspects to it as well.
Absolutely.
This might be the lightest hybrid.
Yeah.
Is it? I didn't think about it. But
I think in terms of
The
strong hybrid, we've got 2 EV battery packs in there. I think we're right around 4.5 kilowatt hours total. 3 electric motors in that V8. Dry weight of the car, 1450 kg, right around there. That's lighter than any strong hybrid I know of in the industry, and that's our philosophy. It's all about performance per unit mass. So you look at the V8, it's a 2.88 liter twin turbo. It's doing 950 horsepower. It's California CARB emissions compliant. And that's the most power dense production engine in the world. So in terms of horsepower per liter, that's production, road legal.
Yeah.
That's the most power dense engine platform that's ever been made.
And revs to 11,000.
And revs to 11,000.
Not bad.
Yeah.
And that was all designed in-house?
Yeah. So we started really on that engine design as the first engineered product. And our powertrain team is our biggest team within Czinger Vehicles. We've got a lot of former F1 engineers on that team, a lot of from Mercedes F1, but then we've matched them with OEM and testing expertise. So the individual that ran all of Bosch's certification for Supercar and HYPERCAR is on our powertrain team. And it's that kind of race bred mentality and max power and max iteration, and it's okay to break things, matched with someone that understands durability, lifing, emissions, and has done certification for these engine platforms.
Reliability as a dynamic also included in that.
Yeah.
Because you can have the power density, but at the same time, you got to have these things have
Yeah.
some type of longevity
Yeah.
aspect to them.
Yeah, quality is not debatable, right? And reliability
all.
falls into that. And people can give you a hard time about your design or this vehicle's for me, this vehicle's not for me. But what everyone agrees about is you want something reliable and you want something that's high quality. And we recognize that as a newer brand, we've got to be on par with the best quality-wise, or we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot in a way that we won't recover.
Yeah. There's not any Zinger parts on any F1 cars yet, are there?
No, officially no.
Yeah.
But we've had a lot of interest from a number of F1 teams.
I can imagine.
It's starting to become interesting to us. We didn't have the volume play in F1 in the past, and we still don't. But now we've got enough programs that are bringing good revenue into the business where it's a bit of an angle of, do we do this for marketing reasons? Do we do this for performance reasons? Do we do this because we're passionate and it's cool to have a part going around the F1 circuit, right? There's a little bit to be said about that. Our dream one day is obviously do it under the Zinger brand, right?
Yeah.
Of course.
We've got some time before that could become an option, but that is the dream.
Yeah. I wonder how limiting all the like regulations of the car would be in
Yeah.
that venture.
Yeah.
Because it's like every measurement is regulated.
Yeah.
They'll dial it down then.
Yeah.
You guys probably build the literal peak.
Yeah, you'll just put the measurements into the computer, I guess, and hit run.
Yeah. We will be the most efficient structure within their set of requirements, right? Or rather guardrails. And I talked to Pat Simon, who was the CTO of F1 when I was at Coda maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And he also liked the idea of doing commonized structures across these teams to incite more competition and more driver kind of distinguished differences, right? So that is a conversation. If we're doing structures across all the teams, maybe that becomes more interesting for Divergent and Czinger as well.
Yeah. Any interest in a Nürburgring time?
Absolutely.
I know everyone makes a big deal about it.
Yeah.
So
It's the most important aspect of
yeah.
the car
I mean,
world,
a huge amount of interest. I'll tell you, we've started simulating our car on the ring. We started talking about dates to get out there. It is kind of a grand finale moment as well, and there's some amazing international tracks that we've also got our eyes on. So right now, our team's looking at what is the sequence of international tracks, when can we get to the ring, and ultimately, our objective, which is run the record time there.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, one thing Gavin and I are exquisite fans of is the spec. It's very spec-based. So I'm a buyer. What are my options? What does it look like? How deep can I get into the spec customization side of the vehicle?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, we're at a point in our history where our first customers are like family and they're like partners to the business. So no is not a word we use often when we're talking with a customer, meaning if there's something that's even outside of our catalog, that's a dream for that customer to own, and it makes engineering sense and styling sense to us, we're going to make it happen for that individual, even if it adds time. Down to a T.
So I wanted a all murdered out red interior 21C with even just a crazy amount. You guys would not be afraid to build that to exact spec.
I review every spec myself just to make sure we're within the Zinger DNA, kind of our image that we want out there, right? I think good taste is something we're solving for. It's also very subjective. But yeah, if you want an all red interior, murdered out, specialty materials in there, if you're a fan of, I don't know, some sort of pearl or titanium material, and we can figure out how to make that happen for you, we'll do it. So in terms of color and interior, much more diverse offering, much more open-minded than I want to say any of these specialty programs from any of the other OEMs that have become very dollar-focused, frankly, right? There needs to be an efficiency of making these vehicles, and if you have customers come up with these crazy specs, you lose some of that efficiency, and you end up usually getting burned on the dollar side. We're young enough where we also don't have that many cars, so we can really take our time with these first specs and make sure that our customers feel like they're getting something that probably won't be possible again.
Yeah. It's probably why a lot of those like hypercar manufacturers charge $3,000 for certain options, $4,000 in options.
Yeah, I mean the low volume game is so costly because you're also talking about human time, right? And if they're going outside of their process in a big org, the amount of human hours just going into processing a design change, an option is massive.
Have you? How much of this? How much time have you spent on the LA roads in a 21C?
Not
Any?
as much time as I would like to, but definitely some. So
Yeah.
we've got Palos Verdes right here.
What is that even like?
We drive out from the factory literally to PV, drive around PV. So that's become a circuit for us. It's surprising in that this car is really a friendly car on the road as well. So you're not feeling like you're getting bounced around, right? If you've driven track cars on the road, there's like beyond stiffness, there's an unsettled feel to kind of bouncing the corners up. This car is exceptionally well damped. So you're very linear, you're very stiff, you're not getting a lot of motion. But if you hit a bump, you're very, very well damped. So you're not getting chattered around and beat up on the road. In the EV mode, you can run this as a, very even low sound car, right? In the opposite end of the spectrum where you've turned it up to 10, you've got a car that's setting track records that's unleashed on the road. And that is a level of performance that I haven't experienced in any other car. I'm not sure exists in any other car. We put a lot of our time into vehicle dynamics as well in terms of what I care about. Less so power, that's just me personally, and more so vehicle feel, steering, pedal feel. What does the full package feel like? Is it responding in an intuitive way, right? Are there any delays in the car? Is it very much so connected to your input? Hydraulic steering on the car, pedal feels very linear. You got a power band where you're doing a lot of EV fill, so even once your turbos kick in, you feel it, but it's not like you're slow up to it. You've got a lot of power from the get-go.
Yeah.
I'm also looking at, correct me if I'm wrong, some almost final production delivery vehicles,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
How close are you guys to doing some of these deliveries?
Like right now. Yeah.
So
literally right now.
It's about
yeah.
to get cracking
yeah.
real fast.
Yeah. So we'll deliver, I want to say 4 cars in the next 4 weeks. And each one of those deliveries is planned out to be a pretty special event. Right? I mean, you're talking about first U.S. cars on the road. The dealers are coming to those. Customers are coming to those. Each one is a celebration. So I think we've got 6 cars actually on the line right now, which is great to see. And this factory is capable of a car a week. So as we ramp as well, we actually, we'll be able to get healthy volume out the door here.
So this was strategically planned as well. So back in October, I was like, February. That makes a lot of sense. I was like, this is perfect timing.
Yeah. We wanted to show you definitely cars in build and what this factory looks like while it's underway.
How many of your buyers are U.S.?
I want to say 65, 70%. So we've made a concerted effort to get as many cars into the U.S. as we can. Most of our dealer network is U.S. based. We're covered all across the country, coast to coast and in the middle. We also saw very healthy early demand, which was interesting, from Germany and the UK. So those 2 locations are probably 2 and 3 in terms of where cars are going. And now you're stretching outside of that. We've got a great dealer in Japan. He's telling us people are like frothing at the mouth for the 21C. They love the tech story there. They've obviously got, maybe one of the deepest and most impressive car cultures and scenes in Japan. So one of the places I'm eager to go to is Japan with the car. We've got the Middle East represented as well. Of course, there's demand there, and we'll spring up over time and get cars into that region.
Because the car sold out like very quickly after reveal, yeah?
Yeah, so the Blackbird edition, which was one of 4, we sold the same day we revealed it. 21C, we've been selling for, I want to say, close to a year now. And we're nearly 100% sold out of the full run. So that feels good for us, right? That means we've had demand we're looking for. As a new brand, you need to prove a lot more than as a brand that has a lot of legacy, right? So under no expectation did we think we'd announce 21C on sale and sell 80 cars. We had to work for it, right? We had to show people what we do, how our business is, the stability we have, even educate them on the aerospace side of the house and what Divergent does, then get them in the car to experience the car. And my view of success and what I was really tracking during that process was once people have driven the car, are they buying the car?
Yeah.
Right. And that's a yes. So once people drive the car, they're getting out of the car and they're saying, yes, we're in.
I'll take one.
Two, yeah.
Right. And that shows that we have the product that matters.
Yeah.
That's the true testament right there.
Yeah, yeah. It's a little different than making 800 V6 cars at $4 million and
Yeah.
somehow selling them all.
Yeah. Hey, they got some good cars in that portfolio too.
They do.
I'm a big fan of SB3 and a couple others.
And you've got to own them in order to get the $4 million V6. So.
Yeah. You talk like someone that knows about that.
I mean, only what people have told me. So I've got no personal. This is all above my pay grade. But we're here to just do our thing and talk about it.
You want to get into the guest questions?
We can. You're not immune to the guest questions. Every guest gets the same 3
Can I
questions.
take a sip of tea?
100%,
Take a sip.
Yeah,
I'm
100%.
going to start
You've
coughing
been,
on you guys.
no, you're good. You've been going. You've been going. We're
Every
doing good
guest
on
gets
time,
the same
too.
3
There we
questions
go.
at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
So
You are not safe from
I don't
this.
get 4.
I can come up with a 4th one for you.
4 was my sports number growing up.
Number
Me
4
too.
is it really? I love it.
Football. It's a football guy.
4th question would be, can I get into one of these vehicles as soon as we're done? That would probably be number 4. That's gonna be awesome. Hell yeah.
Can we stand on the front lip?
Can we take a
photo?
Us 3 on standing on one of the front lips? Can we do that? Yeah. Okay. That's the 4th question. So there you go. Lucky number 4, baby.
Yeah, so we'll do these questions. You've got like 20 more minutes. This will just take a couple.
Yep.
I think we'll just grab one of these cameras and go out to the car, and then you can kind of show us around the car.
Cool.
And that'll probably just be at the end of the podcast. So that'll all just be one piece.
All right.
Let's run it. Start it off,
All right.
baby.
Question number 1.
Yep.
I'm so interested to see how you're going to respond to this. 'Cause,
It can go in so many directions.
right. This is just such a different.
I plead the 5th sometimes.
Yeah. We're not just.
Oh, I'm gonna get it out of you.
This is different.
Yeah.
What's the most overrated car today?
Most overrated car. You see, I like to compliment people. It's in my nature, so it's a tough question for me.
What's the least underrated car today?
Overrated. I like cars, so even when I pick one, I'm like, actually, I kind of like it. I start convincing myself the other way. And this will be an unpopular answer because these are such popular cars. To me, like the driving experience on the road of driving a Jeep is just not a great experience. And I see the amount of money that goes into those and, how much people love them. And then every time I get behind the wheel of one, I'm like, if I'm out, and it's set up to actually do off-roading, hell yeah, but why am I driving this thing on the 405 and around LA? It's rolling around.
You don't
and
like shaking it 80
it is
miles an hour?
so loud in there, I like engine noise, right? And I like things that are supposed to be loud, right? Purpose, right? Intent, efficiency. But if I'm in there and it feels like the whole car is a puzzle, like a jigsaw puzzle that's being just shaken to death, I'm not about the rattle, right?
That Bronco's the
And,
same way.
Yeah.
They're the
So
same way.
that's my answer for you.
This will be a little bit easier question for
Yeah.
you. What's the most underrated car today?
The 21C, baby.
Yeah. Except people love those. So.
Right, but everyone should know
Yeah.
about that car.
Most underrated. It's thinking about cars that I think are underrated here.
I'm judging you based on your answers, by the way.
Yeah, I like that. Judgment is good in this day and age. So I'm a fan of judgment. Most underrated. They're not underrated is the thing, but I still think like early JDM cars are, from a driving experience, something that is so visceral, where it's like, you even take a car that when I initially saw it, I didn't love it, but Honda S2000, when I drive that car these days, like there's a raw era to that JDM era that to me is like, yes, you're seeing cars now sell for $100,000 that used to be 30, 40. It's still an underrated feel. I don't know if that sort of car is going to come again. So, I'd put any car in that era kind of on the list there. So
I thought we were going to be friends after this.
yeah,
Then you
S2000.
pick JDM.
Yeah,
You
you're not a
started
JDM
smiling.
guy.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Traditionally, I'm not a JDM guy.
yeah.
These guys are
All the
JDM
boys
guys.
are JDM guys.
I saw a smile over there. I was like,
all the boys are JDM guys.
either
You
he's
got it.
thinking about something else or he liked my answer.
No, he knows your answer.
JDM fan and has
Both
an
of them are
AMG GT.
Huge
So
JDM, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm
You're
more-
American muscle, or what are we looking
I'm
at?
just honestly just supercar language.
Yeah.
I
The
grew up
supercar
American
connection.
muscle.
Yeah.
My old man, I'm Cuban. He's a Cuban immigrant, so he
Yeah.
came in. It was Corvette,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then that grew from Corvette for me to love supercars.
Mm-hmm.
So I never got the JDM chapter. To tap in.
The JDM, I mean, I think it's about cars that are raw, and we're also at a price point where it was fine to really drive the hell out of your car. And I love the supercar scene. I love the hypercar scene. Obviously, that's our business. That's where my head is 99% of the time. You're driving something that's expensive. When you're driving a JDM car, like, you feel like a reckless kid because you can be, right? And you're just throwing this thing around, and that's part of the fun, right?
Yeah,
it's
that's
like
very true.
you can find its limit and you can pass its limit and you can spin that car and you can have a good time doing it.
I love it. That's
my
the
love for
Sunset
cars,
Raceway right
my
there.
love for cars came long before I was ever driving them. It was just like Lamborghini Murcielago. That
Yeah.
I love. And
Well,
so
that's a good car to love.
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
been-
that's high up on the list as well.
It's just
Yeah.
been doors go up for me
Yeah.
ever since.
Yeah.
Door has to go up.
Last
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
So you've got an unlimited budget to build a 3-car garage,
Oof.
and 3 cars is all you get for everything you want to do.
All right. 3 times the 21C.
I felt that was coming.
For real.
I had a
You
little
think
bit.
you think I'm joking?
No,
but
I know. You just like that.
unlimited budget. I'm getting 3 of these.
Dialed variants though.
Yeah, 2 21Cs, 1 VMAX in
You
there.
give me obviously you've
Yeah.
talked about you being into
Yeah.
like even the outdoorsy side of you.
Yeah.
So like have
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
spec that can handle a little more of the off-road
Yeah.
presence.
I don't want to give too much away, but
That's a
we've
far
worked-
I hit a
21C.
nerve right there. I touched one right there,
we
baby.
have definitely spent a lot of time looking at off-road capability on lower stance
Serato
vehicles
specs
as
are
well.
coming, baby.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah. So
I'm just talking shit though.
I mean, yeah, the specs, like one of the specs we're very eager to build is just the rawest, most lightweight spec of the vehicle, right? Almost like a track-only type experience, delete everything.
Yeah.
That would be high up on my list. If you have 3 of them, that's probably not my spec if I'm only getting 1, but if you've got 3 of them, I think that lightweight spec is unbelievable. I think taking VMAX then the other direction, right, the longer tail car, and going into more of a true GT and also interior tuned for comfort spec,
Right.
completely different character of the car, completely different driving experience, but you got to lean in, right? And I'm all about one extreme or the other. I don't like the stuff that's in between that much. The do it all well is great, and it's hard. It's actually really hard to engineer a car that does a lot great, but it's just a little bit boring, right? So if I
a
can
lot
lean
of
the
it
spec towards one of the extremes, that's where I'm going to lean it for
So
sure.
you're not a Turbo S kind of guy then.
I can appreciate it, but it's not the car I'd buy. I'd buy a
Yeah.
GT3 every single time.
We're
you
back.
know? Yeah.
We're back.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
We're back, baby.
We're fucking back.
Wherever I'm looking.
You lost
Yeah.
me, and we're fucking back.
Hell yeah.
I love
yeah.
it.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. GT3 I think is a great car. Obviously has a lot of hype behind it, but that's a purpose-built car.
Yeah.
That's a
100%.
purpose-built
Serves a
car.
specific
Turbo
purpose.
S, I feel like I've let myself down. You know, I'm like I let my own like inner child down.
Right, exactly.
Right.
It's like,
Exactly.
You got the best
Yeah.
daily. You went out,
Exactly.
you bought the
Yeah.
best daily.
yeah.
sad ass story.
Mm-hmm.
Sad ass story. But yeah,
Yeah, thank you for your time. It's been
course.
amazing.
No,
We're going to go check out
appreciate
one of
it.
the cars. Sound
Absolutely.
good?
Yeah.
let's run
Let's do it.
Let's check out a car. Let's do it.
freely.
Yeah.
Without, I felt like he was able to do it without constraint.
How about this place?
The Turbo S really reeled me back in there. He really did.
These are developed. And on the back of the gold car.
Yeah.
I mean, this is cool stuff for sure, but it's obviously pretty ripped up from a testing instrument standpoint.
Yeah.
But what do you guys want me to do? Like walk around the car and show you some things? Or?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, well, highlight whatever you think is worth highlighting. Obviously, everything is worth highlighting,
Yeah.
or whatever. Because what exactly are we looking at? This specific unit. What am I looking at?
Okay.
From a basis.
We can start with this one. I don't mind. Perfect. So this is PP3. So we talked a little bit about the lineage. The blue car, which we'll see in a minute, that was VP1, and that was the original Laguna Seca record breaker. This is a full evolution. So I never actually even finished that question fully of what's changed since that original Laguna Seca car,
right.
but almost every single part number has changed. So it is ground up, completely different vehicle, almost 100% different. It looks similar. So from a vehicle architecture, design, aero perspective, same principles, but in terms of engineered part, every single part number is different. These PP cars are production spec cars, but used for testing. So this is running full production hardware on the powertrain, on the suspension, on the body systems, on electronics. The inside is ripped up for test instrumentation. So when we're running on the road, we want to have laptop plugged in, we want to be able to record all of our data, and we want to be able to learn things that allow us to make the car better, right? So can we eke out better torque vectoring? Can we eke out better power delivery? How's our front axle looking? Is there anything that we can do between the two front wheels that's going to help us out? So this car is running miles. It's actually got, I want to say, over 7,000 miles on it now. Wow. We test in the high desert a lot, so unofficially, I won't say which OEM, but one of the OEMs has a big testing ground up there. They gave us full access to it, which for a smaller OEM like ourselves to have a $100 million plus facility to go test at is great. So this car's run that facility day in, day out. It's run high desert temps. You're talking 115 degrees outside, all the way down to cold chamber, rain, sleet, snow. It's our highest mileage car. So one of my favorites, we call it the El Mirage spec. So it's got the desert bed kind of lineage to it. It's kind of a warm white, right? So pearly white. Has just a track engineering seat in it. I'm a big fan of doing these subtle accents. I don't know about you guys, but to me it's like I don't like huge graphics on the car. I actually am a fan of painting most of the cars. So you'll see like the painted wing strut there, the painted wing. To me, it looks better when it's integrated as one. But then I like getting this almost undercut as the accent, right? So bottom of the wing, gets the full red. Sweet. Bottoms of the mirror red. Bottom of the canards on the front are red. So almost every aero surface, the underside is this kind of warm, rosy red color, and you end up with like I want to say it's like a classy American spec, right? Because you get the pearl, so it's a warmer white, and you get this warm red, but it's America's colors, right? And this is a car that also captures well. So when we're doing content on the road, if you're driving at night, it's white. It's going to show up in a big way. So we're intentional about everything. We fully spec our PP cars because we want to show people what these look like in proper form when they're on the road. A lot of people run raw bodies or engineered bodies or tape all over the cars. If we can, we'll run it in a good looking form as well.
It's all the grill's all cut from carbon fiber.
Yeah. So that, and you get pretty advanced on the composite side too. I mean, this level of curvature here at the same time that you're doing that pattern cut out, it's gives you that organic feel, even though it's a composite. And we worked on that for quite some time to get that amount of curvature into the composite. This is a PP car, but if you see our exposed carbon on the production cars, I think in terms of weave alignment and the cleanliness of our weave, you'll be hard pressed to find anyone else that's doing a better job. So, part of it's experience, part of it is knowing exactly who is the best in the industry at that sort of layup. And now probably half the 21Cs are actually exposed carbon.
What was the hardest part to actually develop? I feel like the power plant's probably like the most involved, but is there one piece that was kind of the most challenging to develop?
That door hinge is not easy. I mean, that is a long door, so getting the right amount of force to open it, the right amount for stability. But I'll say powertrain is definitely the most complex and biggest project. For us, going through California carbs, hitting the emissions profile at the end of the day, getting EPA sign off on it as well. That was not a light lift. You're also trying to get a ton of power out of a small plant, 2.8 liters, doing almost 1,000 horsepower. That was our hardest project.
With a disgusting 0 to 60 time.
Yeah.
We even said it once. Disgusting 0 to 60 time.
How
What is
fast?
it? What's the 0 to 60 time?
You don't remember it?
I remember it, but I want to see if you remember it.
1.88.
Yeah.
1.88.
Jinx.
Come on, Lucas,
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Is there anything, now this is just a great ask really quick, but can I sit in this one or one of them?
Yeah.
Do I get a sitting experience?
We can get you in one of these.
I don't want to bother my man while he's dialed in right here, but
Bro's
I
out
do
here
want to sit in
tuning.
one. Because Lucas did talk shit about being 6'3" and being able to sit in the bitch.
He
so.
said, you are a big guy.
Yeah. He did confirm I was a large
Dude, look at this next one. Look at the green one. Bro.
Can I put? Let's sit in that car.
This one
big
is
of an ass.
insane.
Yeah. So this is. This car's seen some action. I mean,
This
well,
is sick.
gotta be
shit
careful
that you
what
wanna
we
see,
put out.
though.
But this car ran Laguna Seca, it ran Coda, and it ran the Goodwood Hillclimb record. So this is 3 times over record car.
Wow.
It's now at full production spec. It's our marketing car.
This is crazy.
It literally drove this morning in the rain, right? So you
Dang.
can see it's got some
She's
action
weathered.
on it.
Yeah, she's weathered. That's what we like, though. We like to see a little weathered.
It's an awesome green. Right?
Yeah.
If you take a closer look at it, it's exposed carbon. There's a little bit of candy in that green too, so it's not just like a tinted resin. There's actual paint in there.
It looks good.
and
Plus
it
all the
lights
red-
up. Yeah, and
all
you
the
see
red
the same
accents.
accent theme, right? Gives it a pop of color there.
Yeah, that's crazy.
All right, let's get you guys in.
Fuck yeah.
That's
We're doing a round after this.
yeah, 100%.
Which side is easiest? You get the full engineer experience. You're a test pilot now.
Excuse us.
There's not. Are there 2 seats in that? Yeah. Can we sit tandem?
Yeah, it's not that front seat is fixed.
MD.
Sit here. Let's swing your feet. And then just scurry in. On the way out, try and pop your head out. And then I guess you're pop back. See it.
Shimmy in this motherfucker. Holy shit. Oh, this is perfect.
Yeah.
Dude, this is fucking perfect. Yeah, 100%. It's not bad. It's perfect.
Sell the Aventador, get one of these.
And I got room for the helmet too. I got a couple inches. This is not a problem whatsoever.
Inches left.
Dude, this thing is fucking dialed in like a motherfucker.
Yeah. And you've got a bunch of different seat options in terms of cushioning and the rest of it.
I got room for a helmet.
Yeah.
We need a driver.
Yeah, got a little behind the scenes stuff here. These cars, no one's really seen these other than if they take a picture on the road.
Thank you. Able to get this opportunity so many times.
Damn, Gav.
I fit a little easier.
Yeah. That's built for Gav.
You could move the seat up in between. Yeah, there you go. In between your legs, yeah, manual seat. There you go. There's an arm
There it
sort
is.
of across the front. There you go.
Oh. Gav, you better flick it up.
Get a little steering wheel shot.
I'll put you on the home screen here. There you go.
I would not.
Would not.
Yeah. All the testing
Oh,
stuff
okay.
just has everything fired, so I would not post that.
I won't post that.
Yeah. Phone.
You can see how test fucking is all so worn.
For myself,
For myself.
very transparent person. I've been head down for years working. Like, I didn't want this. And
Oh wow, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, so that's in the back. What's nice is you have the full glass, so you can see up. You have 180 degrees on the side, and you see directly over your shoulder, so you're direct center of the vehicle. You have the up and 180 degrees on the side, so it's
Wow.
an insane experience as a passenger too. And then head out first, sit here. There you go.
My ass off. Look at me now, baby.
Overnight
You kidding me?
success is not a thing, right? It's like it always takes about a decade to actually make something exceptional.
Just 10 years
That's what this is,
when
right?
something is validated. 20 years, you stick around 20, you're that motherfucker.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Everything else in between
Yeah.
is fucking crazy.
This is the start.